Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Hopefully you can hear me and you can see me okay. Thank you for joining us today for this important and, in my opinion, timely session on leveraging geographic information systems for effective urban forestry and compliance. So if you're not here to talk about trees, GPS, compliance, or, GIS, you might be in the wrong spot, but you're welcome to stick around. I think you'll see that we have a pretty good lineup for you today. So let me go ahead and say thank you to Connect Me for organizing this event, to our sponsors, Bad Elf and Tree CheckUp, to our speakers, whom you'll get to see from here shortly, and most importantly, you all for attending and supporting this geospatial event. Don't forget, if you need CEUs, say for your GISP, this is an educational event that you can use towards those credits. My name is Dr. Nikolas Smilovsky, and today I've got the privilege of serving as your geospatial moderator and MC for this event. Full disclosure, I have two full-time jobs. I am the Geospatial Solutions Director at Bad Elf. You'll see the Bad Elf up in the corner here. We are one of the sponsors of this event, but I'm also a full-time faculty member at Arizona State University, where I've been teaching GIS, GPS, and spatial design for roughly 14 years to students in the landscape architecture and environmental planning degree programs. I should probably also mention I'm a International Society of Arboriculture, or ISA, certified arborist, and I've got about 2 decades of field mapping experience. You probably saw on your screen, just popped up a demographics poll. And before we got started, I wanted to make sure that everybody could quickly fill this out. It's just a few questions. And additionally, we will have some future polls throughout the session. And so we love your feedback. And so we highly encourage you, please complete them when you have a second. We'd love to know where you're from, if you're interested in these things. Really gives us great feedback so that we can prepare for future sessions, but also support you all. Again, thank you for your engagement. All right, we'll review the poll results later, so just stay tuned. So today's topic sits at the intersection of technology, regulation, and sustainability, right? So trees and compliance. And it's one that directly impacts the livability. I think that's so clutch, the livability, right? The resilience and the ecological health of our urban environments. Urban forestry compliance, as many of you know, is increasingly complex. Local governments and environmental professionals must balance tree preservation, what's good for the tree, and those requirements with development standards, demands, supply chain, you name it, constituents. And all of this is to be said while these urban forestry professionals, you all, are managing tight budgets, fragmented data, and ever-evolving regulations and ordinances. I mean, every city, county, and state seems to be a little bit different out there in the world of trees and tree management and ordinances, and it's a little bit of the Wild West. Not to mention this whole thing we call climate change and extreme weather events. I think 2024 had some of the most weather events that we've had in record, and I believe already in 2025 we've got record number of weather events. These are things that impact trees greatly. So what we need and what we're going to be talking about today are smarter workflows, better data, the position, the health, all of the critical information that trees can provide. And honestly, because most of us maybe are tree professionals here or tree adjacent, we need simple tools. We need things that everybody can use. We need an all-inclusive tool belt for all the arborists, forestry professionals, and honestly, citizen scientists. And I think this is where geographic information systems, or GIS, comes in, right? GIS is this concept of analytical cartography or digital mapping. We have assets in this map that can supply so much information. Not to steal a phrase from ESRI or Esri, but GIS allows us to see things that others can't. It opens up the window into kind of the soul of the environment. How do the environment interconnect with the people? How do the trees impact the things around it? And through spatial analysis, all of that kind of comes together. In this session, we're going to, it's really designed to demonstrate how GIS and high accuracy GPS or global positioning systems can streamline your urban forestry compliance, right? We want to enable professionals to map these urban trees more accurately, to monitor their health, enforce regulations efficiently, or, just support broader greening initiatives in our local communities. I lived in the city of Phoenix for almost 15 years, and they called it the Shade Master Plan. And Shade was this big initiative for all of the MSA of Phoenix, all the local cities as well around Phoenix, to really push a canopy goal of, I want to say it was like 30% canopy by, say, 2030. And all of the constituent cities in that metro service area were marching along, to work together. And GIS and GPS and this asset management of the trees was the great way that they were doing it together. As we begin, I think it's important to acknowledge some of the current trends shaping urban forestry compliance today. Across the country, municipalities are adopting stricter tree preservation ordinances. Say like in the city of Austin, north of me where I live in San Antonio, the city of Austin now requires an RPLS to stamp arborist reports. Wrap your head around that one. In response to climatic change, urban heat island effect, and increasing public demand for green infrastructure. At the same time, we're seeing a shift toward data-driven decision-making, where geospatial technologies are playing a critical role. From real-time tree inventories and predictive canopy modeling to digital permit workflows and equity-based greening initiatives, urban forestry is literally evolving into a high-tech interdisciplinary practice. These trends highlight a clear need, in my opinion, and I think the speaker's opinions, for a reliable, precise, and scalable tool set to support these compliance planning and sustainability initiatives. So today we have a strong lineup of experts that are going to talk us through some of these real-world applications, technologies, and success stories. First, we're going to start off with John Snow, an ISA certified board arborist, a master arborist rather, and managing partner of Tree CheckUp. He's going to kick us off and really start to explain how GPS data or tree location data can really help review and define protection zones and inform long-term canopy planning. I'll be following up with a presentation I call Kissing Trees, and I'm going to explain a little bit further about that GPS and how we can streamline some workflows to make it really simple for you. Following that, we're going to have Michael Eason, Vice President of the Conservation and Collections at the San Antonio Botanical Garden. He's going to really give you a neat perspective about how they are doing the digital transformation. Finally, wrapping us up, we've got Raymond Woering, the owner of Apglos Survey Wizard, or ASW, what I call a simple mapping app that is going to talk to you about how apps are really simple these days, and you don't need degrees and a ton of training to go out and collect really good data. We'll close the session with a panel discussion and an open Q&A. So please, as we continue down the road here, you're going to see you have the ability to submit questions. Please submit these questions as we go. We welcome your input and the hard questions. Do not hold back, send them in. And at the end of this webinar, we will spend some time reviewing that live Q&A. Okay, before we go any further though, I want to go ahead and just look at the demographic poll results. Let's see what we're made of and who and what and where. And let's see here. So organizational type, it looks like most of you are local government, about 83%, followed up by state government and then also industry players. So maybe 8, arborist or tree firms. Where are y'all located? Well, I'm glad I guess I didn't say most of the rest of the world. 98% of you are from the United States. We do have one person from Europe, and I know Ray Woering, one of our partners talking today, he's from Europe, so I'm guessing that's him. Sorry, Ray, I'm throwing you under the bus. Let's see, business sectors. So the predominantly land, public administration, and planning. So most of y'all are in the planning and land administration. Next, we've got public works and utilities. Makes a lot of sense. We've got a bunch of you that say other, but followed by sustainability, public transportation. Let's see here, municipality and population sizes. So looks like most of you are from smaller municipalities, maybe under that 25,000 person limit at about 39%. But it's pretty well distributed about 20 to 30% for each. So I guess the moral of the demographic story here today is that there are a lot of different people from different parts of the United States, mostly, and Asia, that are interested in trees and from different sections. And as I mentioned earlier, that sings the song of why urban forestry and tree health and tree ordinances is really an interdisciplinary field today. So again, thank you for taking the time to be here. We're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to turn it over here in just a second to our first speaker, Jon Snow. And I know he's heard this joke many times, but it's not Jon Snow from the famous book and TV series Game of Thrones. He's way better than that. He's actually my brother from another mother. You'll notice we both have the ponytail Steven Seagal look. With love, without further ado, Jon, take us away. I'm going to go backstage.
Thank you so much. So welcome to my presentation here on GIS compliance made simple, how accurate tree mapping drives urban forestry success. I'm delighted to have you all here to discuss accurate tree mapping. I do have a brief poll. If you could all take a moment to fill that out, that would be great. I'm Jon Snow, your presenter today, and you may have heard about another Jon Snow, but that's not me. I'm the senior urban and community forester here at Tree CheckUp, and some people refer to me as the LinkedIn Arborist. You may see me on LinkedIn. Go ahead and scan the QR code up there in the corner if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. Love meeting new people, talking with them, helping them with their urban forestry challenges. So as an end user of GPS and GIS products, my firm has evolved over the past few years to provide highly accurate tree-related information in easy to understand, forward-facing formats. And what I mean by that is literally our clients, I want them to be able to visualize the trees with the tree maps, something that their mother could easily do. And that's a little bit of a different kind of a take on things, and it works very, very well for us. Many of the developers and city urban foresters that review the work comment about how user-friendly our data is and how this impacts project developments. When we can combine this high accuracy data with some readily available products, our reports are really something that anyone can grasp quickly. And I put a sample of the reports in the little document section if you'd like to download that and kind of get an idea of some of what we put together. So why accurate tree mapping matters? Accurate tree data is the foundation for enforcing tree codes, reviewing permits, and protecting our canopy goals during development. During this presentation, we'll talk about how precise tree mapping can enhance urban forestry practices and drive sustainable urban forest development decisions. At a high level, don't have time to get down deep into the weeds, but I'd love to chat with you more about that if you're interested. We'll then learn about achieving that sub-meter accuracy for tree locations, ensuring reliable tree protection zones. If you're not familiar with what a tree protection zone is, that's an area of the tree underneath the tree that needs to be protected. And you can see this visualized here. This is an actual project that I've been working on recently. And we can, with GIS tools, with that sub-meter precision, we can enable that staff to verify that tree preservation and really enforce compliance. I hope you're going to walk away with a better understanding of the benefits of that accurate tree location data in creating these effective canopy models as well. And this helps us meet our urban forestry goals like the 330-300 rule. Canopy goals aren't a theoretical thing. Municipalities are setting these 30% targets or other canopy targets. And you can't manage that unless you measure it. And when you have that GPS accuracy in managing these dense urban canopies, It's critical. And this is really aids to developing that comprehensive urban forest management plan. Plus, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the real world applications of precise GPS data in that urban planning and how it aligns with development projects and environmental objectives. Before I get started, let me share how this all came to be. You can see a picture of me here. This was after Hurricane Matthew, uprooted tree. And before I transitioned into becoming a full-time independent consulting arborist, I was working as a consultative sales arborist. I was working for a tree company. However, I was really looking for new challenges beyond that traditional tree care. And this led me into this niche of development site inventories where maybe it's a wooded field now, 16, 20, 40 acres, and they want to develop it into a small subdivision or a commercial site. And so that's a lot of what I work with. And this required precise tree location data. And the tools that I was using at the time couldn't deliver. And I quickly began seeing how these plans were based on inaccurate data, both on my part, but in other people's part. And that really led to disputes, mitigation issues, and delays. It's never a pleasant feeling when you have a client call up and say, you got all this great data on the trees, but the location's off by 30 feet, and we can't use that in our plans. And that's really kind of embarrassing. And so that's what really kind of led me into um, evolving the company and really making some of the investments in some GIS tools. And that moment of revelation really came when I was standing in a grove of trees surrounded by a bunch of saw palmettos, sweating, mosquitoes everywhere, and I was just totally frustrated using my cell phone and the GPS on the cell phone. Just completely inaccurate data. And I realized this was a need for a more sophisticated solution. And so I began looking at some of the better options. And this led me to the Bad Elf, which provides that precision that I need even in these densest woods. I can get sub-meter, often most of the time sub-foot, even down to half an inch accuracy, even in very dense woods. And with this tool and some simple, inexpensive, and even free software, I can map the trees with really incredible accuracy. So for literally less than $10,000, you can do this too. The beautiful thing is that I can now collect the needed GPS data that I need and import it into any GIS platform. So the ELF acts as that receiver that's giving me the accurate location. I'm using another piece of software to actually log the data in, and basically it all gets exported out as an Excel sheet, and then that can literally be uploaded into any GIS platform and even CAD. So what this did for me is it really transformed our reports and really started resulting in much more satisfied clients. The data was accurate, it was spot on, and you know, it's engineering grade. So really, really made a huge and immediate tangible impact. So really what started as a fix for my own workflow has evolved into a core part of our consulting practice here. We're able to help municipalities, developers, and the design team gather that sub-meter accurate tree data, and then that helps simplify compliance, and overall it's going to help protect the urban forest. So first, let's delve into tree inventory mapping. That's kind of a focus here. And the focus is achieving that sub-meter accuracy for these tree locations. And this kind of precision allows for that verification of tree positions and the establishment of tree protection zones. as you can see on this little illustration here. Those are all sub-meter accurate. Most of those are less than 10 inches accurate as far as the location of the individual trees. This is on a site that I recently did. Having an accurate tree inventory is the first step of most urban forest management plans or anything involving trees when you're talking about development sites and municipal compliance. And ultimately, it's the only way to enforce tree preservation effectively during that development process. Trees are often an afterthought, and unfortunately, traditional surveys aren't always accurate when it comes to trees, and that can lead to big problems. So, without having a solid GPS coordinates that you can go back to, it's really hard to go back and find the same tree. A big thing for me is to literally, I want to collect a data point location. And 6 months from now, if I want to go back to that tree, I should be able to walk literally right back to that tree. And when it's done correctly and properly, you have no problem going right back to that tree and you can verify everything that's there. So, like I say, how can you protect trees if you can't even find them? You have to have good, accurate data from the get-go. Having that accurate tree location is really a critical part, and they help us draft precise tree protection zones in accordance with municipal requirements or the industry standards. Essentially, there's four basic models of tree protection zones. We have that 1 inch to 1 foot, 1 inch to 1.5 feet. And you can see this in this illustration here where it's kind of this expanding circle or bubble. You have the drip line model, which are the edges of the tree. Or you may have a tree protection zone that's defined specifically within the municipal code. The bottom line is having that accurate data allows us to analyze and adjust any kind of conceptual plans that we have and mitigating for these potential infringements in that tree protection zone. And planners and developers with these digital inventories that we create can overlay the proposed construction and spot some conflicts fast before the shovel even hits the ground. And it also streamlines the municipal review process, and this makes it easier and more efficient. Reviewers love it when they get this data put in front of them that's easy to understand, and they can go out and verify very, very quickly. This is ultimately saving clients time and money on their construction projects. Let's talk a little bit about that canopy modeling and the 3-30-300 rule, which is 3 trees visible from every home, 30% canopy coverage citywide, and 300 yards to the nearest green space. And this was something that came out of Europe, and it's slowly starting to gain some traction here in the United States. And this is increasingly beginning to guide some of our urban forest management planning and canopy targets. And GIS itself can help us measure that progress and plan for these plantings. When we are using GIS and these accurate inventories, we can better address these targets effectively. We create, for example, a 300-meter buffer or 300 yard. I typically I'm not a metric guy. I'm more of an American guy, so it's feet and yards. So I just convert everything to yards. 300 yards, roughly about the same as 300 meters. So we create that 300-yard buffer around like parks and things like that. So, hey, can people walk to that space in under 5 minutes? We can measure that. And we can use these GIS tools to do various canopy analyses and determine whether or not we're beginning to hit or achieve our canopy coverage goals. When we talk about mapping, we talk about sometimes some of the software out there is you're literally just dropping a pin on top of the location of a tree. And that may work well for street trees, but it really falls short in parks or dense areas. That GPS accuracy is where it becomes really essential here. And this allows urban foresters to address each tree individually. I was talking with one of my colleagues, Jeremy, just yesterday about how he's using his cell phone to drop a pin for trees that need tree work in his parks. He manages parks in Seminole County. And so he's responsible for a lot of trees in a lot of areas. And he's using his cell phone to try to drop a pin, to send a crew back to do tree work. And it just isn't working for him. And ultimately, it boils down to that GPS chip in your cell phone is so small. Even out in the open, you're going to get maybe about a 30 to 60-foot range of accuracy on that. Well, how many trees can you fit in 30 to 60 feet? Quite a few. So the reality of it is you need that sub-foot, sub-meter level accuracy so that you can pinpoint exactly where that tree is and you can send the crew to the right location. It's really, really critical. So I want to kind of close this out and ask you to envision arborists, planners, developers, and cities that leverage detailed GPS data for inventory management and establishing these tree protection zones. Again, this allows planners to create precise CAD drawings and provide these well-informed recommendations and ensure that the development efforts align with our environmental objectives and they save time, money, and ultimately trees. Thank you very much. Again, if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, just go ahead and scan that QR code, and I appreciate that. Nick, back to you.
All right. Thanks, John, for that. That was awesome. Yeah, I like going after you. You make my job easy. So thank you for that.
Sure.
And let me share my screen here. John, you may need to stop sharing yours. All right, there we go. And we should be live. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go very quickly here, but today we're going to talk about kissing trees, keeping urban forestry compliance simple with GNSS and GIS. So what are we going to be talking about in the next few minutes? I'm going to give you a quick intro to who Bad Elf is. Also, right now, there's going to be a solutions poll, another poll on your screen. If you have it just a quick minute, please go ahead and fill that out as well. We're going to talk about the old Navy adage, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. We'll talk about our GPS solutions, some simple mapping apps, how this all relates to GIS and tree compliance, and how Bad Elf can help you get there with our geospatial enablement. So who's Bad Elf? We are about a 15-year-old company. We've been making GPS, or global positioning receivers, for quite some time, specifically in the GIS survey and government spaces. These GPS provide high accuracy tree locations being attached to any phone, tablet, or laptop. We work with iOS, Android, and maybe you still have Windows or Palm Pilot. We work with all of them. Our goal here is to have you lean on our industry experience and our expertise in GPS, and we can actually not just help you get the hardware, but help you design, implement, and deploy these solutions, that say like John just went over. And I kind of want to say, get ready for the mapping revolution. So what is KISS? KISS is keep it simple, stupid. Maybe you're a Dwight Office fan, but keep it simple, stupid is this idea that why overcomplicate something when you don't need to? Why make something overly complicated when it should be simple? this is the concept of being inclusive. We want everybody to collect tree data. We don't want it to be something that's so difficult that the average person can't do it. And so at Bad Elf, we create GPS. So you can see here, this is one of our GPS. This is a friend of ours, Aaron Musgrave. Aaron works for a different botanical garden of ours. You can see here where she's used GPS to revolutionize how they collect data at that botanical garden. But this GPS is Bluetooth connected to your phone or tablet, and then the internet and a bunch of geo-wizardry kind of happens, and you're able to go out and collect these data very easily and accurately. Bad Elf has two major receivers, the Bad Elf Flex and the Bad Elf Mini. Depending on your conditions, if you're truly in an urban environment with big buildings or really heavily canopied, you may need more of a Bad Elf Flex, or perhaps you're way off grid and you don't have internet, Flex would be a solution. Whereas Mini is a smaller device you'll see that might be easier to carry, but a little less accurate. And so we want to pick the right tool for the right trade. I'm not going to get into this, but depending on which unit you decide, as John was just discussing, that sub-meter accuracy is paramount. The key here is Bad Elf has a GPS that would work for your specific environment, your condition. If you're not going to use Bad Elf GPS, I would just encourage you to whatever vendor of that hardware, to talk to them about these different accuracies and how they perform in different environments. It's very crucial and important. So here's some examples of the Bad Elf Flex, the survey grade or engineering grade unit. And then here's some images of the Flex Mini. This is our near survey grade unit or GIS unit. You can see one is more attached to a traditional survey pole for a little bit higher accuracy standards, whereas most people, use the Mini and attach it to a mobile device. Now, I'm going to quickly show this video. It's going to take like 60 seconds. If it all fires up, here we go. And I'll just go ahead and have the subtitles, but what we're showing here is Chris utilizing a Bad Elf Flex. This is a Bad Elf employee here. Let me speed it up even a little faster for you. And you can see here, he's got the Flex on a pole. He's got a tablet or a phone, or I believe it's a phone, an iPhone. And he goes to the tree. He gets to the tree and he's going to collect its position. Depending on the app you fire up, we can have all types of data dictionaries in there. You can have the type of tree, the condition, the diameter of breast height, the drip line, the height, a ton of miscellaneous information. Or if you're doing planting zones, you, instead of taking a single point, you can collect a polygon. And so no matter what you're doing, Bad Elf Gear is going to be able to provide that positional accuracy. I'm not going to get into it heavily, but Bad Elf works with about 100 different apps in Android and iOS. One of our app partners is here today, so I'm not going to talk too much about Apglos, but the point I want to make with Apglos is it's a very simple, affordable app that is going to permit you to do all of your tree data collection and export out to systems like CAD or PDF or GIS and Esri or Google Earth. And it's extremely easy. It's not super complex. It's like the Swift boat instead of the aircraft carrier. And so you'll hear a little bit more about kind of modern affordable solutions like that. If you're collecting data with an app like that, those data can actually go into a larger system where this is kind of where the Esri platform or ecosystem of GIS shows up. And if you want to pump this data into decision-making platforms and dashboards, Bad Elf does this as well. And these bigger kind of management schema are what you all as local government people would be utilizing, right? And tree compliance and GIS is hand in hand. If you have the location of the tree and all of the information of the tree and all the things near the tree, you can now truly manage that inventory. You can do further adaptive maintenance and planning. So you can facilitate proactive tree pruning and maintenance, the health of the trees, which mitigates safety issues and keeps aesthetic value up. You can resource allocate and send people to different areas depending on the needs and conditions of the trees. You can automate and create highly detailed compliance reports, which directly relate to regulatory requirements. It helps with community engagement, like through those dashboards and websites. And it's an easy way, more than just a paper map, to show this asset, because trees are an asset. Everybody wins from trees. In my opinion, it's one of the most important public assets. And instead of just making decisions on the whim, we can make data-driven, or what we call quantitative decision making. This is not just high in the sky thinking anymore. Let's use science to do this. So let me wrap up with saying that if you need to get there, we can help you with that. So there should have been a poll asking if you needed any types of solutions. We'll reach out to you based on the results of that poll. But at Bad Elf, we have an enablement team, or what we call GET, the Geospatial Enablement Team. We take you from zero to hero. Leverage us. We would love to chat with you. Please reach out to us. Fill out that poll, and we'd love to schedule a 30-minute time to review your specific needs. And we make all kinds of customized packages, no matter the size of your organization, whether you're a size of one, or you're one of the largest cities in the country or the globe, let us know. This is my contact information, nick@bad-elf.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, like John said. Without further ado, I believe, Michael, you are up next. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, Michael, if you'd like to pop up here. All right, here comes Michael. Michael, thanks for coming on stage. You should be able to share your screen and take it away when you get the moment.
Thank you for that. Yes, so I am the Vice President of Conservation and Collections here at the San Antonio Botanical Garden. Been here for about 7 years, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the garden and my involvement, which started a few years ago, and sort of rebuilding both the plant conservation department, which we do a lot of field work, but also managing our living collections here on our 40 acres that we have here in San Antonio. Let's get started. So a little bit of our history. The garden was started back basically came to fruition in about 1980, 81. And during that time, that's when there was lots of active collecting. There was purchasing involved, bringing in the trees, bringing in the plants, installing various gardens throughout. With that, they did have records, but back then it was those simple like card catalog type thing, these handwritten records. We did have a plant log that I was able to access, a handwritten plant log that would have information in there like such and such plant was planted, to the north of the Wasatch on the East Texas Trail. Well, 40 years later, that's not super helpful. And many of those records were damaged over the years. This continued on through 2010. Definitely there was more collecting going on, more propagation here on site. There were some wild collected plants or seeds that were brought in that were grown here and installed throughout the garden. We had this amazing collection of Texas native plants. However, from a conservation point of view, they didn't really amount to much because I could not tie those to a wild collection or their provenance back, in the wild here in Texas or northern Mexico or wherever these plants came from. There were some written records that existed, and about this time, a lot of things were being put into Excel, and at some point, someone probably made the decision like, oh, we don't need those old records. We can just throw those out. They're taking up too much space. So a lot of our data was basically sent to the landfill. In 2010 to 2017, that's 7 years or so, I call those the dark years. At that point, as far as plant conservation is concerned, there was little to no field work. There was hardly any documentation that I can find. There may have been an Excel spreadsheet that a volunteer put together, but again, it was not connecting those dots from the plant that we had here in the garden to a population in the wild. I know that there were plant purchases going on. There were plant donations. Plants were being moved from one section to another. And when it comes to conservation, we really need to know, like, where did this one particular plant originate from in the wild if we're going to do any sort of restoration with this species, or try to get it back to, you know, its wild state somewhere in South Texas or something. And so if we have 5 different plants that came from 5 different populations, we can't do that. So those plants just became, like, just call them botanical curiosities. And throughout that, we also had plant die-off, which every garden has. And so we weren't sure, like, which plants survived and which plants didn't. And most of the knowledge when I started in 2017 was this pass along institutional knowledge. And that was, well, the person that worked before me told me that they came from this place. Well, that does not help us one bit at all. So I started in 2017, and what did I inherit? Very few records. Most of them that I did find were heavily damaged, insect eaten, water damage. The one main document that I found that was intact was a handwritten log in 2003, had 2 entries, and it stopped after that. There were missing tags, there were missing signs. This is an image of a very rare plant from coastal South Texas, which, as you can see, it's a beautiful specimens, but at this point, I have no idea where they came from. So it was all of this information, like, we just didn't know. There was no mapping of the garden. We had outdated signs, old provenance, like, just so many issues were going on that, you know, I had a lot to tackle. But I saw this as an opportunity to rebuild this garden. I had a lot of folks ask me, like, why would you go work for San Antonio Botanic Garden? They're not a real botanic garden. And at the time, you know, they weren't. But I saw the opportunity of growth here and where the garden was heading in the future. We're looking at increasing that diversity. We're looking at having provenance collections. At the time, we didn't have a lot of funding. I think the conservation department probably had about $15,000, $20,000 a year to spend on various projects. So I, you know, think I'm pretty good at Excel spreadsheets. And so I started doing Excel spreadsheets and started documenting everything that I was collecting from the wild, everything that I was bringing in. I would start making species lists for the various gardens that we have here. So we have various type gardens throughout the garden as a whole. Started mapping eventually. Again, with no funding, what was my solution? I used Google My Maps, and it was, at the time, it worked really well for us. I was able to walk out into the garden. We do have Wi-Fi throughout it, and able to actually put that point exactly where I needed it for many of these species. And granted, we were doing trees and very large plants first, and as folks alluded to earlier, you really can't use it for highly precise mapping. These are things like, you know, a tree with a 30-foot crown is something I could easily do. Eventually, we started using Garmin GPS units tied to phones or iPads and things like that. And then finally, last year, we made the big push and we invested in IRIS-BG, which is a botanical database management system. And the IRIS-BG is our library. It's it is dynamic, but we don't really want it to be too dynamic. We want to be able to add to it. We want to be able to pull information from it. We don't want a lot of people using it on a daily basis because, one, we have sensitive data in there because of all the rare plants that we deal with. But also it would be very easy for someone to get in there and kind of muck things up. But within IRIS-BG, we're able to collect all that provenance data. So if I went out to the field and collected seeds off of a certain species, I would be able to get the GPS locations. I would have elevation, habitat type, associated species, the landowner name. I could take photos and put in there. I could take photos of the habitat. I can put so much information in there, but it's very limited on the application beyond that. So we can extract that data later on, but it's really not super helpful for the gardeners, for instance. We're also looking at putting in a DNA bank, which will have sort of the same information. So these are different types of collections we have here at the garden. Within that, we have our propagation plants. Just alone in the conservation department, which did not exist really, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we started growing plants. And to date, we're growing over 10,000 conservation plants per year. Every single one of those plants is tracked to a wild population. And you can see how this can get really, really confusing as a botanic garden, especially when we have several different populations of the same plant. On top of that, our horticulture department is growing close to 80,000 plants a year. So we don't have to track all of those because most of those are seasonal plants that get turned over every year. But so we do need to track some of those. And again, we also have our plant rescues that we work with the Native Plant Rescue program. So we bring them in as well. So we have a lot of plants that we're tracking. For instance, our oak collection, which we have about 120 species of oaks, mainly from the United States, some from Mexico, some from Europe. But within that, we have over 2,500 plants. So we have to track every single one of those. And that becomes really important because we want to be able to know where these plants are going, where they're going into the garden, what sort of care they need, all that sort of good information. Our living collections, people ask me, like, what sort of numbers do you have there in the garden? And we have no idea, quite honestly. Like, we just started accessioning what was in the garden. We've done about 3,000 so far. Our guess is we have over 10,000 individual specimens throughout the garden. How many species that might be? Probably around 2,500 to 4,000 is our guess. We have no idea, and which is does not bode well if you're a botanic garden in the conservation game. So throughout this, it's not like we're pausing our installations. It's not like we're pausing our work to count everything. So this is definitely a moving target. More plants are planted each day. We're purchasing plants, we're growing plants. We have plants that die that we have to deal with. So even some of the oak trees that I had surveyed last year, we've had 2 of those removed at this point due to pest issues. So it's very much a moving target that we're trying to hit here. And finally, all those plants that we're growing, like, we do share this with other botanic gardens. So some of the rarest plants in the world, especially here, or definitely here in Texas, we are growing here at the garden. And part of what we do is we try to back those up with other institutions throughout the United States. And so we need to let them know, like, hey, we're sharing with you these 10 plants, and they came from this GPS coordinate here in South Texas. And so they know that they have that population covered, and we can share other populations with other institutions. So it doesn't do us any good in the conservation game if we are saving just one population of that rare plant. We need to be hitting all of those populations. So a couple years ago, I started looking into, like, how do we manage all of this? And like I said, we did get Iris BG, and that was our data. That's where we're going to put everything in there that we possibly can, from growing conditions to height to width to whether it needs full sun, whatever. Propagation protocols, ethnobotanic information, etymology, and this is information that eventually can be shared with other departments, whether that's our media, our education department, our programs department, our horticultural staff. But this is basically our library where we're going to try to house as much information as possible. All of that feeds research, future research, future restoration programs. We have our special collections that we'll hold in there, just basically everything you can think of. And that's when I looked at their maps. So Iris BG is amazing for what they do. Their mapping, I didn't really like it too much. I wanted something that was going to be a little bit more user-friendly. I used to tell our marketing department that I want maps that look like, you're going to Six Flags, and I'm going to get rid of all that miscellaneous stuff that's in there and just highlight our oaks or highlight our endangered species. and try to get rid of all the other things, because you do get distracted when you look at the maps and you see too much information on it. So we wanted to be able to isolate things specifically and kind of gray over a lot of the things that we don't want people to see. And that's when I discovered Bad Elf. Lo and behold, they're right up the road from me, which is great. It was a pretty amazing, that's the one we ended up purchasing. But a pretty amazing product. It has, as folks mentioned earlier, sub-meter accuracy, which is amazing. And we can even get down to basically an inch or two if we really, really needed to. But as soon as I saw that, and through Bad Elf with their support, that was with Chris, who I'm not sure if he's in the audience today, but the training that was involved, the ease of use, I was floored how easy it was for us to use it. And this is coming from someone who's, the last time I used ArcGIS or any mapping program was probably in 2010. So, 15 years ago or so. And seeing, wow, this is a great asset for our garden. This is exactly what we need. And then on top of that, Chris was definitely said, you need to check out ArcGIS for your mapping, which I had briefly looked into, not too deep, but it was, again, very budget friendly for us, especially as a nonprofit, just to do the work that we needed to do, which was basic mapping of the garden. But beyond that, there were so many other applications that we could use. And of course, with ArcGIS, there's tons of training online. This is definitely not the ArcGIS I learned in 2008 when I was at a different botanic garden. It's much, much different. And the support is there as well, which is pretty amazing. And I will say, like, both these companies want us to be successful. So you don't get that too much these days. But some of the things that I was shown that just really kind of blew my mind. I remember talking to someone afterwards, after we went through our first round of training, and I think there are so many applications that we can use for this. And it's not just simple mapping of plants. You can see down at the bottom there, it's like the mapping, the storyboards, the dashboards, and it's very, very dynamic. The Bad Elf as a unit seamlessly flows between us being out there mapping things to the ArcGIS, which then we can download that information, and that goes straight into IRIS-BG. The dashboards. This is one of the things that, and again, we've just started doing this. We haven't implemented most of what you're about to see. These are screenshots from other gardens and other projects I found online. But as soon as I saw this, and I was thinking, well, this is perfect. This is something that our Hort staff can use as a guide for our work week. Like, these are the trees that need attention. These are, the areas that need mulch, whatever it may be. These are basically task-driven things that our supervisors can put out to the Hort staff, and they can go out and do it. They can tick things off. And if someone happens to be out and they see, oh, we had a windstorm come through and we've got a 3-inch broken branch hanging over a trail, we can get some folks out there to take care of that. But beyond just the living collections, we're looking at documenting every single valve box that we have, sprinkler heads, electric panels, our dedicated trees, so we can manage those, our different benches that are dedicated to folks, sign management, and just, I think the possibilities on this are just honestly endless. And again, my mind was thoroughly blown when I went through that first day of training. And eventually, this is from New York Botanic Garden, what we're looking at doing is having public access for all of this. And this is sort of where I'm seeing San Antonio go, where we can have the public come in and they can do self-guided tours, and they can select if they want to see the oak trees, if they want to see the rare plants, if they want to see the cactus, if they want to see the orchids, whatever it is. And as you walk up to those plants, they can pull up that information, and that information can be something like, oh, this plant came from the mountains outside of Monterrey, Mexico, and it was collected in 1979 by a guy named Woering, and it was installed in the garden in 1984, and it's been here ever since. So that's the type of information we want to be able to give out to the public. There's definitely some information we can't give out, and a lot of that's just related to the private law land, or the privacy that and agreements we have with landowners. But also there's art installations that we do. It can be used for wayfinding, and these applications, I think, most botanic gardens are going to be moving towards here in the future. So finally, just to wrap up, we had to be scrappy. We had to get by with the tools that we had with very little budget. And we slowly built that up. All those Excel spreadsheets that I made years ago really came in handy when we needed to upload that information to IRIS-BG. We slowly built that foundation, and we slowly were able to purchase things over time, like new computers that could handle some of these applications. GPS units, and then the Bad Elf, IRIS-BG, and now we're with ArcGIS. It's actually, the three of those for us is absolutely like a perfect trio of software and hardware that we need to manage our living collections. And I would highly recommend looking into these folks. So with that, I'm going to end my presentation. We'll take questions later, and I will pass this along to Ray. Thank you very much.
Yes, Michael, thank you very much for introducing me, and thank everybody for being here at the webinar. I'm going to share my presentation. Let me see where it is. So welcome to the webinar for GIS for Effective Urban Forestry. My name is Raymond Woering. I'm a CEO and co-owner of Apglos BV. We're based in the Netherlands. Apglos stands for Advanced Position Global Software. We do have software that is initiative field software for GPS surveyors and within all management applications. So we actually developed this software to be used for anybody who is also a non-surveyor and needs to land survey. So we're making advanced iOS and Android survey apps operable by any field worker. We go to the first screen. Let me explain a little bit something where we're from. We're based in the Netherlands, and our country is pretty much well known for urban forestry and water management. That all depends on, because not only 56% is on the sea level or protected by water infrastructures, we also need to keep in consideration that our country is only 300 by 300 kilometers, and we live here with more than 18 million people. So we're like, the net is like a drain or sinkhole. It's not so really nice to tell that, for several European rivers. Again, I told you the net is a very small country, so we need to be very much aware of managing the forestry, water, urban civilizations. So for us, it's very much handy that we can survey forestries and everything what's around it. I do said there like a water management, because that's one of our main issues, but with water management also comes forestry. Water management and forestry, it's not only civil engineering like the dikes, canals, especially in unique infrastructure like wastewater recycling, but also especially asset management. We do have areas that are very high protected forest areas. If you might have followed some news, we do have areas where the wolf comes back. So we do really need to monitor everything around us. So that's why we made our software a little bit more accessible. So for collecting geo information, it's not only for the cables, you see a lot of pictures there, and you see me on the right with the windmills on the background. As you can see, we do have flat land, but we also do have forestry and also very protected areas where we can maintain, because that we are living much in that there are a lot of cities and a lot of rural areas. We do need our trees, and that's where everything comes inside. So what we can see here, this is Apglos and our partners. I made up some small geographical thing. If you do have our app in the city, of in the center, and you download our app and you connect it with, for example, the GPS receiver from Bad Elf. So Nick, thank you for introducing us a little bit in your presentation. If you connect the GPS receiver, Bad Elf, and you get the GNS corrections, either with a base rover setup or with an N-trip, local or globally, is what I tell you there. You can use everything in the center with our app. And the app is called the Apglos Survey Wizard, which I think it's a nice deviation because we are located on a very nice location within the Netherlands, which is an actual real castle. I'll show you in the end of the presentation. And Bad Elf has an elf, so the connection should be made. We do have the connection with GIS. Within our software, you can make up your layers. For example, I want to land survey a tree, I want to land survey a plot of area. You can enter attributes with your layers in a very easy and simple way. The controller which you need, because we use an app, either on your iOS device or your Android device. With your phone, you can download the app itself. If you do have like a base rover setup or you do have an RTK network access, just enter it there, connect to a GPS receiver like the Bad Elf Mini or the Bad Elf Flex. And then the only thing you have to do extra is make sure that you have your coordinate system ready. Then with that, you can either use the GIS maintenance asset management, for example, like the Esri, or you can use a CAD and so design and build, which is a little bit on civil engineering. If I go to the next slide, we had a little bit of a trend. As what I'm seeing, because we do globally business, is that we see a very decreased number of educated and skilled surveyors. With us in the Netherlands, also within Europe, it's a very big problem. So what we actually wanted to do, which was our answer as Apglos, keep it simple. Just think a little bit outside of the box. And we want to make sure that GPS surveying is for everybody again. It's all based on our own experience. So we usually had to, because my background is civil engineering, we used to have an engineering company with field teams there, but it was so difficult for me to find experienced or skilled surveyors that we had to find and try something else. And that's why we started developing our own software, which we really wanted to make sure that the upcoming generation, it should be a little bit more appealing to young professionals instead of what we found out that existing software can be a little bit more complicated. And I still believe that for, in this case, land surveying or mapping trees or mapping areas or areas where you want to map everything for not only forestry, but this what we really build our software from. What we actually also did, we predefined our coordinate system. Worldwide, we have over 5,200 coordinate system. So we really want to incorporate it in our software. So we only have to choose where in which location and which kind of coordinate system you would really like to use. We have included USA and Canada as well. For example, in my country, we only have one coordinate system, so that's easy. But I know, for example, in the USA, you have even per state, you have different coordinate system, but it's all implemented and predefined. Also, to make it a little bit more easier within our software, we did some extras in our software. You can find it on the eye for information. If you download our software, there are 4 different types where we can help you out. The first one is tutorials. So with each and every step in our software, even if it's a line, a polyline, a polygon, if you want to map out a point or whatsoever, the videos inside will help you step by step how to use the software. Besides that, we also have within the software a small tool. For example, I really want to land survey a point, just as the software, and the software will tell you which button you have to press before you when you really want to land survey a point. Also, for remote areas within Europe, especially within the Netherlands, we have a very, very good RTK net, very high coverage. But I definitely know for sure that within the US or in some other countries, you will not have any coverage or coverage on your mobile phone. So our app can be used offline as well. So you can still land survey without any phone connection. Last one, the customer predefined workflows, you can also enter. So for example, if you have for yourself all your standardized items, and that's why I want to bring also a point there, I want to map a tree, but I definitely do understand you want to know which type of tree, the height, the length, the diameters, the area. So within our software, you can easily download your own workflow. So for example, this tree, I want to ask this and this and this question, and you just fill in the blanks. It helps you minimize errors, rework, and back office activities. The app itself, I have a nice picture on the right side. We support almost everything. Got GIS file formats from DXF, shapefiles, XML, land XML, CSV, TXT, KML, and the list goes on and on. But we also included the PDF function, which we actually are very grateful that our partner Bad Elf mentioned us that a lot of people want to really generate outside quickly a PDF. So what you do, you just save as, and then you can find a PDF. You can use a technical drawing where you just enter everything you know, so your name, location, etc., and you will find a really nice technical drawing which you can send. You can not download it, but you can send it. So, and all survey functions will be included. It's just what I mentioned, from stakeout, small calculation. You can draw. There are some draw function inside, and the app is running on almost every phone and consumer tablet, especially like rugged devices, as long as you have iOS or Android. And we support all GNS correction services, of course, that. So in the end, I want to share some contact details with you. In the right bottom, you see our nice castle. So if anybody of you guys really want to come to the Netherlands, you can find me on LinkedIn, of course. And then if you want to contact me, my email address is there, woering@apglos.eu. The website is there, apglos.com. The YouTube channel is there. So if you really want to enjoy yourself within our YouTube, please subscribe, because it helps us also to make it a little bit easier and nicer. And within the YouTube channel, you can find out that we are going to build a GNS receiver from Lego. And let's see if you can get a fix or an RTK. In our YouTube, we also try to make the biggest antenna and stuff like that. That's our YouTube channel. You can find the links, also the link to the iOS version and the link to our partner Bad Elf. And I hopefully will see you again. Thank you very much. And well, that's the end of my presentation. Let's go back to the panel. Thank you very much.
All right. It looks like we are all back in here. Thank you, Ray. That was great for talking through the Apglos Survey Wizard. John, Michael, thanks for coming back. So I've got a list of questions from the crowd. We'd like to quickly review with you all. I'll ask the question, I'll shoot it towards somebody, and if you want to start the answer, that would be great. Then let's have a discussion. We can chat for the next 15 or so minutes. So let's dive right into this. Okay. I think this is sort of just for the group. Anybody can answer, but what are some of the most common apps utilized to map trees? What are some of the most common apps utilized to map trees in your experience?
I can jump in on that. Are you talking, I guess, let me reframe that question. Are you talking as far as apps that are going to get the GPS accuracy that you need, or apps in general? Because, I mean, literally you could use Google Maps on your phone and just drop pins on there. There's also a lot of industry available software that, again, is pretty much just dropping that pin on that point. And that's maybe fine for like a street tree inventory where you have, a canopy that's pretty well defined and you can identify on your screen where that tree is, because you don't necessarily have to have the center point of the tree. The problem really becomes in these park situations where you have multiple trees or closed canopies. And then that's really where you need that GPS stuff. So the software that I use, and there's a number of different ones out there you could use. I use Fulcrum. It's very, very inexpensive. You could use, Survey 123. I think that's a Esri product, if I'm not mistaken. You could use the Apglos. I mean, there's a number of different platforms out there. Ultimately, it's a matter of what are you trying to achieve with your stuff. One of the reasons why I went with Fulcrum is because it allows me to manipulate um, the data or that I'm collecting. So it's like multiple apps as based on one platform because every project that I do is very, very specific and customizable. And so I kind of focus on that.
That's great. I'm going to ask you a follow-up question to that, John. How about on the opposite end of the fence? You've got the data collected. What about the GIS or inventory system thing? Have you any comments on stuff like Tree Keeper or Arbor Pro or Planet Geo or iTree or Esri? Michael mentioned another system for the botanical garden. So any thoughts on the app side for the GIS asset software?
Boy, again, that's a great question. And ultimately, it really depends on what your end goal is. I would suggest, I think most of the audience here is municipal in nature. In many municipalities, they may have like an ArcGIS platform. If you can get tied in with that, I would kind of stick with an ArcGIS because that's like a overarching platform where you can add in multiple layers. So when we're talking about the urban forest, yes, we may be mapping the individual trees, but you also need to know, are there power lines nearby? Are there underground utilities? Where's the sidewalks? Where are the roads? Where's the sewer? Where's the water? Where all these different things. And those come in as different layers in that ArcGIS platform, typically in the municipal environment. But if you don't have that, I would kind of keep it simple. I mean, it can really, literally, it could almost be an Excel sheet if that's really what it boiled down to. But most of the stuff that I do, I actually produce in using Google Maps, which works fine for 98% of the work that I do. And is very user friendly. It's literally engineers can pull that data in. Your guy out in the field that's doing the work can use it. And that's the key. A guy out in the field is not going to have access to the ArcGIS platform. So you need to understand what your end goals are. And then once you have the data, you can bring it into whatever system you're using.
That's really informative. Yeah. Ray, what you got?
Yeah, so thanks to John, it gives me a little bit more of an eye opener. Within our software, we use the interface is Google Maps because a lot of non-surveyors or people are not used to use this very complex software. If you see our software, the base behind it is Google Maps. It will follow you. You can either download or you can watch, if you want a satellite image or whatsoever, or maps image. And then the only functions are there is the point. You mentioned it correctly. What kind of data are you going to use? It's the GIS function, a CSV, which is Excel actually, which is also in our software. And that's why we wanted to think outside of the box. In 2011, when we started doing this, we found out that all that software has all these lines and then hours, minutes, seconds, and most of my end users, a lot of gardeners I do have, they think, okay, the only thing I need is, the property line. I need to know where the trees are. I need to know how much I need to go and get the grass out and stuff like that. But we just kept it very simple. So I really would love for the listeners or the people who are in the webinar just to try it out. If you download our software, you get a 2,500 coins and you can immediately start doing your stuff. And if you want to have some extra time, just contact me and I'll make sure you get some extra coins to start using that. But otherwise, you can also contact Bad Elf.
Yeah, John, what's up?
Let me just point out to everybody that's listening here, once you have that good data, okay, and this kind of goes back to what Michael was saying in his presentation as far as losing that data. As long as you have that data and you maintain that data, you can bring it into any one of these platforms that you need to. And that's the real key. It's like, so if you're just literally starting out today, I would recommend, hey, start simple with Google Maps. It can be, you open it up, literally import CSV or Excel, boom, your data goes right in there. And it's not that complicated. You know,
I literally think,
columns of data you can hold in there.
Yeah, I would.
yeah. Well, one second, Michael. And actually, I was going to ask you a question. I was just going to comment that even my 77-year-old mom literally has Google Maps on her phone and Google Earth. So if she can do it, I think we can do it. Yeah, Michael, what you got, sir?
Well, I was just going to say, well, a couple things that came up, but one, the My Maps that we use, one of the things about that, and you can kind of play around with it. The reason why we used that in the beginning was because it was free. And it was available to basically everyone here at the garden, and I could have the various gardeners go out and they could map their section. And so I didn't have to go out and do every single plant out there. And so that was one of the reasons. But you can actually add layers in that, and you can turn on various layers. And so you can see that one image I had with all of the various garden borders within the garden as a whole. Like we could turn those on and off. We can turn on, you know, I layered it to where we did oaks, we did gymnosperms, we did the monocots, the large monocots, palms and stuff like that. And so you can actually click back through all of those and kind of get an idea of what we have in our collection. As far as, and I'm very limited to zero experience with other applications, but as far as GPS units go, I've done, before I started working here, I was doing tons and tons of field work throughout the Southwest United States, and we always use some fairly high-end Garmin units. We would use those to get averages, and we could get down to about 2-meter accuracy with those. About a handful of years ago, 3 to 4 years ago, I started noticing people stopped carrying their Garmins and they started using their phones. And the accuracy just is not there in the phones, as John had alluded to earlier. In one case, I had a friend of mine, happened to be on the property. He goes, "Hey, could you check on this orchid population for me?" I said, "Sure, send me the GPS coordinates." Easily 100 meters off. And when you're looking for a plant that's only 16 inches tall, it being 100 meters off is not good. And he was just using his map that he has. And I had warned folks, like, these things are not accurate at all. Even when you place that pen down and you think like you're standing in that point, what it's actually recording, like visually it looks correct, but that data behind it is not correct at all. So having a high-end or medium high-end GPS unit to get that really accurate data, I think is vital. On our side, what we will be doing as we bring more staff on and we have time, we will be going back to those original data points that I collected with using my phone or our Garmin unit and getting those very accurate coordinates with the Bad Elf. So again, it's a little bit of duplication of work, but we want to be as precise as possible when we're doing this.
Well, that was absolutely great. One sec, John. Just give me one sec. We got so many questions to get to. No, that was a really good discussion. And John Mullen asked, we want to use our public work staff to do these surveys. Are Bad Elf units easy to use? Is there online training available? I think you heard from the group that, Bad Elf is easy to use. I would say also, most GPSs these days are getting easier to use. That's the sort of environment we're in. They mentioned the hardware on a phone. The antenna on your phone or tablet is very small, whereas even the Garmin unit has a visible antenna coming off the top of it, where the Bad Elf devices have professional survey grade antennas. And so a lot of that, wraps in there. Michael, before you totally stop chatting, I want to quickly ask, somebody asked, we have paper maps. What is literally the next step? What would you recommend?
You have paper maps? What's the question?
I've got paper maps. What is literally the next step? And I think they mean to go digital.
Oh, to go digital. If you have that, well, I would say that first step is getting those GPS coordinates recorded somewhere. And that, again, we used Excel just to have that as sort of a database. But having I guess it depends on the application. I'm not sure. Like Iris BG works really, really well for us, but I also see it because it did come up in discussion in our leadership team here at the garden. It's like, do we really need Iris BG if ArcGIS can do a lot of this? And for the Botanic Garden, yes, we really need Iris BG. For a urban forestry or a parks department, you probably do not need Iris BG as a management system for your collections. You know, ArcGIS, I think, can handle basically everything that any institution, from what I've seen. And again, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on this. I'm still in the learning phase, but that would be that next step is documenting with GPS, with a very good GPS, making sure you have accurate data, and then trying out some of these other platforms and seeing which ones work best for you. So,
follow-up question. A gentleman asks, do you have any plans on asset inventorying any other objects at the Botanical Garden? Benches, other things like
we
that?
will be doing our operations team. We will eventually be doing like all the valve boxes, electric panels, sprinkler heads, because I don't think anyone mentioned this, but we do have the ability with Bad Elf to get to, which blows me away, that we can get to basically 1-inch accuracy, or 2-inch accuracy. I do not understand all of that, but I saw it. Chris was able to show that to me and during our training episode, and yeah, it's like this is pretty amazing with what we're going to be able to do it. But we'll do, like I said, all of the sort of the infrastructure that we have that our operations team uses, and then also things like our signs. So it can be used for sign management. It can be used for our dedicated benches and trees that we have around, so we know where those trees and benches are. Here in a botanic garden, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but people will make a large donation and they'll have a bench dedicated to someone who may have just passed, and we need to keep track of those. So it's a great tool. So
that's great. All right, John, we're going to go back your direction now. I think we're going to kind of end with a fun conversation. We were talking backstage about it briefly, but you can't turn on the news. You can't chat with somebody at the local grocery store without talking about artificial intelligence. This whole AI revolution is occurring across multiple industries. And I guess I wanted to ask you, John, do you have any thoughts or experiences using AI, machine learning, large language models like ChatGPT in any of your arborist operations? Pros, cons, give us your thoughts.
Well, let me share my screen if I could. And
I think we can.
Let me see here. Can you see my screen?
There it is. Yeah.
Cool. So this is actually a project that I've been working on recently, and I bring this up for twofold. Number one, to answer this question and also kind of go back to that different layers. You can see I actually have multiple layers of data in here. I have the tree protection zones, and then, these are trees that are going to be removed are red. The ones that we're going to keep are green. And so it's a very, very useful tool. So just to this is actually just a simple Google map that's got multiple layers in here. And you can literally click on a tree point and pull up all kinds of data. I can pull up a photo of the tree so we can actually see that in there. It's like embedded right into that Google map. So it's pretty resilient. But here's the cool part to go back to the AI question. All these circles here, literally, I uploaded my Excel sheet into ChatGPT and asked ChatGPT to create a KML file for the tree protection zones. And within 15 seconds, it did it. I literally imported this right in, and bingo bango, you've got your accurate tree protection zones for each tree. So
That's pretty fantastic. Very, very cool. Okay, so gotta ask you, Michael, what do you think? AI? Do we need to start, worshiping our AI overlords? What do you think?
We've just started using it here at the garden in a sort of I personally have been using it in a very limited manner. It's interesting, I think, coming from someone that has a lot of knowledge about native plants and plants in general, and when you're asking AI to sort of, let's say, develop a description of a certain species of plant, I pick up a lot of errors. And part of that is because there's errors on the internet that it's pulling from. And so if there's errors out there, you're going to see that duplication happen. One of the biggest things I've seen is the use of recently with using phones to ID plants, whether it's iNaturalist or Seek or Google Lens, what have you. And yes, sometimes they're accurate, but there's a lot of nuance to that. So I personally don't use it. I don't advise other people to use it, partially because I don't think that you're really learning anything. As a botanist, anyone can take a photo and say, this is what it is. Great. What did you learn? You didn't really learn anything about that plant. Like, can you describe the leaf margin or leaf shape or whatever it may be about that plant that caused you to ID it? And they can't. It's because, Google said or iNaturalist said. So there is a bit of dumbing down that I've seen. And I have worked with field botanists that are using applications in the field to try to ID something. And to me, you're not gaining more knowledge from that. And which I think is something that's lacking currently with a lot of people that are just getting into the botanical field. So.
Oh, wise words. So I see, John, you talk about AI as a tool where you utilized it to help the process of the mapping, and in that circumstance, it seemed to work great. Michael, you talk about it as a tool for IDing the tree and creating narrative about the tree, and it doesn't seem to be working out so well. Ray, why don't you take us home? We're at the end of our session here. I just want to say thank you to all of you presenters and attendees. We will be recording this and getting that out there. If you responded and you'd like to talk to one of us, we will definitely be reaching out. But Ray, what do you think? Do I need to start worshiping my AI overlords, or are we a few years off? Take it away.
Oh yeah, well, Nick, I think Michael has a very good point. If we would like to implement AI or augmented reality using the capabilities on your phone for scanning or land surveying, like a point, and that the software will recognize the tree or the object you're going to map. The only problem there is the database you need would be humongous. If you just go outside and look around, or how many tree types there are, or how many vegetation there is, I think it will come in the end, but I think it's a little bit too early to mention something about it. So in this case, I do understand, John. AI can help you a little bit to process stuff. But again, when I have to go with Michael in this case, I think it's a little bit too early to use AI in land surveying options, especially when you're outside. Maybe in post-processing, yeah, but definitely will come somewhere. Yes. Thanks, Nick.
To that point, and I agree exactly with what both Michael and Ray are saying. I went in and verified the tree protection zones on that map. So I'm not actually just simply relying on ChatGPT to come up with the solution. I'm actually going back and looking, okay, and doing the measurements. Is this accurate? Did it do it right? Part of it really goes back to the prompt that you're entering in and the data that you're supplying it. So it's garbage in, garbage out, and Michael's absolutely right as far as being able to field ID plants, and that takes skill. It's a skill set, and you have to develop that.
Absolutely. And, today we really talked about GPS and terrestrial mapping. We didn't even touch remote sensing, aerial imagery, synthetic aperture radar, LiDAR, light detection and ranging, and kind of the machine learning algorithms that can actually, as Ray said, post-process these data sets, and they can do some pretty fantastic things. But that's for a different webinar. Today, we were just talking about using GPS to collect trees. So we are a few minutes over. I really appreciate everybody that stuck around to hear us keep chatting. John, always a pleasure, my friend. Michael, welcome to the family. Can't wait to bring you back in about a year and see all of the awesomeness that you brought to the Botanical Garden. And Ray, we always appreciate your innovation, and your app has been great. And so thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon. Stay tuned. We have more Connect Me sessions coming soon. So cheers.
Thank you.